The most effective cold weather survival shelter ever field tested was not designed in a laboratory. It was not engineered by an aerospace materials team. It was not featured in an outdoor gear catalog between a $400 sleeping bag and a $600 trekking pole set. It was built under a bridge overpass in Minneapolis in January by a person who had no other option, using $30 worth of materials from a dollar store 2 blocks away. And it kept that person alive in minus 15-degree wind chill on a night that sent 4 other people to the emergency room with frostbite. That shelter still doesn't have a product page. It doesn't have a brand name. It will never be featured in an REI catalog or reviewed on a gear website with affiliate links in the description, because there is no margin in it. There is no patent on cardboard. There is no licensing fee on Mylar. And the $22 billion outdoor survival industry has no mechanism for profiting from knowledge that originated with the people it was never built to serve. This video is about that knowledge, where it came from, why it works, and exactly how to build it. For $30 in under an hour using materials available at any dollar store in any city in North America. The outdoor gear industry is a marvel of marketing applied to genuine human fear. Fear of cold, fear of exposure, fear of being underprepared in a situation where underprepared means dead. That fear is real, and it is reasonable, and the industry has spent decades learning to monetize it with extraordinary precision. A 4-season tent from a premium manufacturer runs between $500 and $1,200. A sleeping bag rated to minus 20, $300 to $600. A complete cold weather shelter system from a name brand outdoor retailer. Easily $2,000 before you've bought food or water. The people buying that equipment are not being deceived about quality. The materials are good. The engineering is real. But the engineering is optimized for a specific set of conditions. Alpine wind, precipitation, packability, weight. And those conditions are not the conditions that kill the most people in the cold. Most cold weather deaths are not alpine emergencies. They are static cold events. A stranded vehicle, a power outage in a rural home, a night spent outside in an urban environment without adequate shelter. Conditions where wind and rain are secondary factors and the primary threat is simple, sustained heat loss from a stationary human body in a cold environment. For that specific threat, the one that actually kills the most people, the premium tent is not the best tool. It was never designed to be. And the people who figured out the best tool for that specific threat were the ones who faced it every single night with no budget for anything else. This knowledge has roots older than the gear industry itself. In the winter of 1888, a series of catastrophic blizzards struck the northern plains and the eastern seaboard in rapid succession. The Great Blizzard of March that year killed over 400 people across the Northeast. But in the weeks before that storm, a lesser documented January blizzard stranded hundreds of railroad workers across Dakota Territory and Minnesota in conditions that dropped to minus 40 with sustained winds. The workers who survived multi-day exposure did so in improvised shelters built from whatever the rail cars carried. Canvas, wooden crating, paper packing material, metal sheeting. The accounts collected afterward by the Northern Pacific Railroad's Safety Division documented a consistent pattern among the survivors. The shelters that worked were not the largest ones. They were not the most structurally sophisticated. They were the smallest, the most sealed, and the most layered. Workers who had stuffed paper and cardboard between themselves and the metal railcar walls survived. Workers who had wrapped themselves in canvas that trapped a dead air space between the fabric and their bodies survived. Workers who had built small sealed enclosures and shared body heat inside them survived. The ones who built large fires in open structures, who prioritized active heat generation over passive heat retention, fared significantly worse. Those railroad workers were not applying a survival protocol. They were discovering, through desperate improvisation, the thermal physics that modern cold weather science has since confirmed in controlled research settings. The principle they found, that retained heat in a sealed, layered, reflective microenvironment outperforms generated heat in an open or ventilated structure, is the same principle underlying every effective improvised shelter documented since, including the ones being built under bridges in Minneapolis right now. Here is the physics that makes a $30 improvised system, thermodynamically competitive with a $700 tent, and this is the part the gear industry's marketing material is carefully structured to make you never ask about. A standard 4-season tent, even a premium one, is ventilated. It has to be. Moisture from breathing and body heat condensation accumulates inside any sealed shelter, and if that moisture has nowhere to go, it saturates your insulation and accelerates heat loss through evaporative cooling. So tent designers engineer ventilation into the structure, mesh panels, adjustable vents, double wall condensation channels. This is a genuine engineering solution to a genuine problem. But it comes with a thermal cost that the catalog descriptions never quantify. Every cubic foot of warm air that exits a ventilated tent is replaced by cold ambient air. In a static cold weather scenario at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, the air inside a well-ventilated four-season tent reaches equilibrium with the outside temperature within a predictable window, unless a continuous heat source maintains the interior temperature. Your sleeping bag is doing the work of maintaining that interior temperature, not by heating the tent, but by preventing your body heat from escaping fast enough to kill you. The tent itself is doing almost nothing thermally except blocking wind and precipitation. Now consider what a sealed, layered, reflective microshelter does instead. Mylar, the material in emergency thermal blankets, reflects approximately 97% of radiant heat back toward its source. When you line the interior of a small enclosed space with Mylar, the radiant heat your body continuously emits bounces back toward you instead of being absorbed by the surrounding surfaces and conducted outward. The space between the Mylar surface and your body becomes a radiant heat trap. The smaller the enclosed space, the more effective this trap becomes. Less volume means less air to heat, less surface area radiating outward, and faster temperature rise from a single human body's thermal output. Cardboard addresses a different heat loss mechanism entirely. Corrugated cardboard contains dozens of parallel dead air channels running through its interior. Dead air is one of the most effective thermal insulators that exists. It is the same principle behind double-pane window glass, behind down insulation, behind the hollow fiber, fill-in premium sleeping bags. A single layer of corrugated cardboard beneath your body eliminates the conductive heat loss pathway between you and the cold ground that drains more thermal energy per hour than most people account for. 2 layers of cardboard create a conductive barrier that competes directly with purpose-built foam sleeping pads costing $40 to $60. The candle element addresses what sealed spaces cannot avoid. I'm psyched. The gradual equilibration of interior air temperature with exterior cold through the walls of the structure. A single tea light candle produces approximately 30 watts of heat continuously. In a small sealed Mylar-lined enclosure, roughly the volume of a camping tent's sleeping area, the 30 watts is sufficient to raise and maintain interior air temperature significantly above ambient exterior temperature. Not enough to be comfortable, enough to be survivable, enough to push the interior of a sealed improvised shelter to 30 or 40 degrees above the outside temperature with no fuel source more expensive than a dollar store candle. The combination of these 3 elements, radiant reflection from Mylar, conductive blocking from cardboard, and active thermal input from a candle in a sealed space, creates a thermal environment that addresses all 3 heat loss mechanisms simultaneously. The premium tent addresses one of them well and partially addresses a second. The $30 system, built correctly, closes all 3 pathways at once. In 2019, Dr. Matthew Todman and a research team at the University of Alaska Fairbanks conducted field thermal measurements comparing improvised cold weather shelters against commercial alternatives under controlled static conditions at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The improvised structure studied Mylar-lined, cardboard-insulated, small-volume enclosed shelters of the type documented in urban homeless encampments demonstrated interior temperature retention that exceeded the commercial four-season tents in the study by a statistically significant margin under static conditions with no wind factor. The research was published in a cold weather survival engineering journal with limited mainstream circulation. It has not been picked up by any major outdoor gear publication. The advertising revenue those publications depend on makes that outcome structurally predictable. Here's exactly how to build this system. Everything on this list is available at a dollar store. Total cost, under $30. 2 heavy-duty Mylar emergency blankets, the large ones, not the compact folded versions. A roll of duct tape, 2 to 3 large sheets of corrugated cardboard. Appliance boxes from behind any grocery or electronics store are ideal and free. 4 to 6 tea light candles. A small metal can, a standard soup can with the label removed, works perfectly. Optional but valuable. A second person whose body heat nearly doubles the thermal output of the interior space. Find or create a small enclosed space. A large cardboard box you can fit inside works. A small room, a vehicle interior, a space beneath a stairwell with the entry sealed. Any volume small enough that your body heat is a meaningful percentage of the total thermal mass. Smaller is always better for this system. Line the interior walls and ceiling with Mylar, reflective side facing inward. Duct tape the seams. You are building a radiant mirror box. Every surface that reflects your heat back toward you is a surface that is not absorbing your heat and conducting it outward. Cover the floor with at least 2 layers of corrugated cardboard. Place a 3rd layer beneath where your torso will rest. This is your conductive barrier between you and the cold surface beneath the structure. Place the metal can in a corner opposite your head. Set a tea light candle inside the can. The can acts as a heat concentrator and a flame shield. Light it after you're inside and the entry is sealed. In a correctly built Mylar-lined enclosure of sleeping bag volume, the interior air temperature will rise measurably within 20 minutes. Within an hour, under static exterior conditions, the differential between interior and exterior temperature will exceed 30 degrees Fahrenheit with one person and one candle as the only heat sources. A note on safety that belongs in this video and not as a disclaimer tacked to the end: a sealed space with a candle requires a small ventilation gap, no larger than a ½ inch opening near the base of the structure, to maintain adequate oxygen and prevent carbon monoxide accumulation. This is not optional. A small gap at floor level does not meaningfully compromise the thermal performance of the system. It makes the system safe to occupy. Build it in. In shelters across Minneapolis, Chicago, Denver, and Portland, people have been sleeping inside variations of this system every winter for decades. Not because they read a survival guide, because they built what worked and kept building it better each year. The thermal principles they discovered through necessity are the same principles that a university researcher confirmed with instruments in a controlled study in Alaska. The knowledge crossed from street-level survival to peer-reviewed science and still never made it to the gear catalog. Because the gear catalog has no SKU number for $30 and a roll of duct tape, there is a person in your life who needs this information. Maybe they camp, maybe they prep, maybe they live in a vehicle or volunteer at a winter shelter or have a family member in a part of the world where the next power outage is not a hypothetical. Maybe they've looked at the price tag on a 4-season tent and felt priced out of staying warm. The physics does not check your credit score. The radiant heat bouncing off a $2 Mylar blanket does not care what neighborhood you live in. The $30 system works because thermodynamics works, and thermodynamics has never once charged anyone $700 to obey it. Pass this on. The people who need it most are the ones least likely to find it on their own.